put applause in the background.
Good morning, we've got the crew of Pacific Terrific here, just after their world record-breaking row across the Pacific Ocean. Girls, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Elle Carey from Bundaberg out in Australia, and normally I'm the co-founder of a co-working space up there, an innovation hub called The Generator, so hi to everyone at The Generator. Fun fact, ginger people can go on adventures and not get sunburnt daily.
Hello, I'm Kaz Lander. I'm from Loughborough in the UK. My normal day job is as a sports scientist for English Institute of Sport. And fun fact is I genuinely did not want to get off this boat, and these two had to pull me off it.
That's why you were still attached when you tried to get on.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I am Megan Hoskin, live in London, and I sort of left a pretty normal job to get involved in some more exciting, adventurous outdoors things, and found myself rowing across the Pacific. So apparently that went pretty well, and we'll see what happens next.
Cool, so perfect. The first question is from Cicely Maybury. It says, congratulations, Pacific Terrific. She's curious when you three decided to take this race on. Has it been a dream for many years for each of you, and were there any personal reasons tied to the race?
Okay, should I explain?
You go first.
Okay, it's a bit of a long story, so I'll try and make it as short as possible. So I signed up for the race about 12 months ago, so the end of July 2017. Initially I was part of another crew, which didn't work out, and in about October time I found myself crewless, but still determined to row. So then in end of November, I found Megan, who replied very enthusiastically to an email.
I got a very out of the blue email saying,
Yeah.
would you like to row the Pacific? I said, yes. And then we spoke like the next morning, and that was pretty much done deal.
Yeah, so Megan signed up, very done deal. And then initially we were with another two rowers, so we were a crew of 4, and for various reasons, then in January I received an email from Elle out of the blue asking if there was still space, to which I replied back saying, unfortunately we had full crew, but I would keep her on a reserve list just in case anything happened.
Which I didn't really believe that you would.
So me and Megan kind of cracked on with 2 other rowers, and things didn't quite work out as we planned, and 6 weeks before the race we found ourselves as a pair, to which I then emailed and called Elle and said, are you actually interested? Do you want to row? And got another very enthusiastic yes. back.
I think I emailed you twice before you emailed me back again. After that, I was like, no, I'm really interested. No, please let me in the crew.
Yeah, so 6 weeks before we set off, we finally had a full crew.
So I think it would be tough to say that, you know, we've been thinking for years about being sat right here and having rowed the Pacific. But it's definitely safe to say that all of us have had the ideas and sort of ambition and dreams of like massive challenges and epic things bubbling away for years. But it's just that the last year and the last 6 months and the last 6 weeks before the race started, that the opportunity just sort of threw itself in front of all of us and we all just jumped up and shouted yes, and that was that.
Right. So then, Elle, this is more directed at you from Zoe. Do you plan on writing another blog or a book? Because apparently she needs it in her life.
Hi Zoe, hi Candice, hi Sailor, good question. I'm definitely going to write about this. It's going to be, I don't know, I think it's going to be hard to write about in a way because every day is so the same, I think, in many ways. Like, I haven't figured out yet what is going to be, I don't know, I think it's going to be difficult to portray this adventure. It's going to be very different to the cycle one maybe, but I definitely plan to write. I don't know how soon, but yeah, there'll be something coming out. So maybe just keep pestering me and I will put it out there for you.
So do we think there's a book, blog or Netflix series in the making possibly?
Maybe a blog. I don't know, I'm not very good at writing.
You're great at writing.
You are. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Stop it.
So Tags, another one from Australia, says, what was the hardest thing you girls faced? And apparently missing your dogs doesn't count, Kaz.
I did miss my dogs. I talked about my dogs a lot.
But they sent you letters, so it's okay.
They did.
Yeah. Great letters, it's so weird.
Hardest thing. I think maybe like for all of us, we rode straight out of Monterey into a storm. So spent like 4 days on power anchor, which meant that we all got to sit in the cabin, which might sound like it's glorious and gives you a rest, and it's quite frankly the worst thing you could possibly ever want to do.
When you say sit in the cabin,
Well,
we each had about 3 inches of floor space and the rest of it was sort of placing our legs on the ceiling or walls or something to try and
Sort of like
squeeze in.
being dehydrated purposefully so you don't have to use the bathroom, to go outside in like these giant waves that are like slamming into the boat.
It's like playing human Tetris in a 3x5 foot box.
Yep.
yeah. So actually, like the not rowing and the bit that sounds like it should be relaxing is the least relaxing part.
We're every couple of hours having to brave trying to open a hatch for 3 seconds to get some air in because we're in an airtight box basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
You'd
was
wake up
pretty
like actually hyperventilating because it's properly airtight and you do just run out of oxygen.
The one time we had the air vent that's built in there, the solar air vent, I got a wave through it to the face, so that wasn't a great plan we figured out.
No.
So that wasn't so fun.
So then whilst you're out there, what were you craving the most? Was it food, sleep, a certain bed, or just anything but rowing?
I'm gonna let these two answer that question.
Food, just a little bit of food. I think we spent Meg and I anyway, we would spend a good couple of hours probably every day just dreaming of what meals we would cook, what we would buy if we were going to the supermarket. We'd give each other like ingredients to cook with. We'd say, okay, you've got to cook a meal with chicken. What are you gonna cook? Definitely like people, of course, as well. Like it's very strange not having the usual access to phone. Like we could text people but it's very strange not being able to go home to your partner at the end of the day, go home to your friends and things like that. So that took quite a lot of adjusting as well. It's quite you're isolated but then not isolated as well, I suppose. So yeah, I found that challenging as well, for sure.
Elle used to finish a row shift and then look at me and start laughing and say, for the last 5 minutes I've just been thinking that I'm just going to go to the supermarket or to the bakery. And she's like, but I've just realised I'm on a boat and I can't go.
I'd be like, after this shift I'm going to the pub, or I'm going to go again.
Didn't really work like that.
No.
I think we all missed just being able to go somewhere as well.
Yeah.
It felt like, your brain sort of makes you think that you're on a training row or that you're out for a day or two and that at some point it's going to finish and you're going to move on and go somewhere else. And I think just being able to get up and walk.
Yeah.
Back home I'll quite often go out for a walk and just keep walking for as long as I feel like. And after 3 foot on the boat you run out of walking space. So.
Yeah, it's not really walking, it's like controlled falling around the place.
So, what will any of you consider doing the Great Pacific Race again, or any other sort of ocean row, or do you think you've kind of ticked the water challenge now?
I think I'll do more water challenges. I don't know that I'll do another row, but I would like to do something else on water for sure. I think it's too soon to say, but it's been 2 days. For me anyway. Unlike you, Kaz.
Yeah, I like got halfway across and was like ready trying to decide what ocean I was going to row next.
Yeah.
But I think like I need a bit of a break. A, because I don't have enough money to row another ocean for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I loved it, and the thought of rowing another ocean does really appeal to me. And I thought maybe once I got back on land, like that thought would go, but it hasn't yet. So, but yeah, same me. I want to do a lot more water, like water-based adventures. But yeah, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, I think I massively surprised myself. I'm not an ocean goer, I'm not a sailor, I've never been offshore. And I massively surprised myself by absolutely loving being out there and feeling so at home and so comfortable, like I think we all did. I think, I wouldn't do the same thing, exactly the same thing again, because I sort of always need to bring something new to a challenge. But I think the fact that when we were coming in, I figured out I had a little while to play with in Hawaii before my next plans. And I genuinely thought about, maybe I could get on the safety yacht and go back out and track and follow the other boats that's still out there. Probably says that, I'm pretty keen to get back out on the ocean and go do something else big again. So whatever it is and wherever it is, definitely up for it. Yeah.
So you mentioned the guys that are still out there at the moment, Nick and Sparky, that are rowing away. Do you ever have much interaction with the crews or previous crews from the Great Pacific Race, either before, during, or afterwards, or is it?
It's been incredible from the minute
so
that we were sort of signed up. The whole community in sort of ocean rowing, everyone has been so friendly, so welcoming, so helpful. People reaching out to us, tips and advice and support and sending us sort of cards and messages, and it's just been absolutely immense. And the current cohort of sort of rowers from the race this year, from other ocean rowing events, it's a massive community, isn't it? And it's just been insane and incredible.
Yeah. And out on the boat we had a Garmin inReach, which meant that we were able to message the other boats. So we had a good little bit of banter going on with the UN boys when they were still out in the ocean and stuff, which was nice. So it was good to find out like how they were feeling and like experiencing the same things that we were.
Because they're the only people on the planet really that kind of know exactly what's going on, what that
and that are going through it at the same time as what we are.
Yeah.
So which makes you feel a little more sane as well, to know that you're not like completely alone out there, I guess. Like it is really comforting to have that contact with them.
Especially when you realise we'd be there rowing and especially at night and looking up and see a plane going overhead and think, those are probably the closest humans to us at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, there's no boats.
And they're all eating food and being comfortable.
Having a sleep and watching a movie. So knowing that there were the UN boys and Nick and Sparky and another boat out there feeling the same thing was actually really nice.
Yeah.
So explain what it's like now being out of the boat. Have you still got sea legs? Do you feel like you're teetering all over the place? What were those first moments on shore like?
Wobbly.
So wobbly.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
Just like, I saw Meg run into the table of condiments the other day after we got out of the toilet. Meg's like, no, I don't need an escort to get back, and then toddles over into this table. But that was like right after. No, we're a lot better now. Like still, I probably just feel like weak more than anything now, and it's like when you just spending time standing, because we just didn't spend any time. You just don't spend time walking. You don't spend time on your feet. So there is quite a lot of like adjusting for our bodies that sort of needs to be done. But yeah, I think most of the wobbles are gone now.
Yeah.
After like even one alcoholic drink though, like it really exacerbates it quite a lot.
Yeah. I've probably done like too much walking the last few days.
Shocker.
And I've got DOMs from walking.
Which delayed onset muscle soreness for those of you not in sports science.
Hey, so was the race what you expected it would be like? Was it any easier or harder?
It's probably different for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. The race was amazing, and like Great Pacific Race is just brilliant, and the support you get from everyone, and Chris Martin who runs it, even like before the race starts, is just brilliant.
And the whole crew that were
And the whole
involved
crew,
in it.
so
Yeah.
Nick, Erdon, Justin, Ellen, everyone on the safety yacht, everyone out there, so supportive. And
Ada J. Mark.
Ada J. Mark, yeah, everyone out there was so supportive, and we couldn't have asked for anything more really. Like, any questions we had, like everyone went out their way to help us and fix everything for us. And
I think we all knew going into the race that
It was
a
gonna be
huge
tough.
part of it was that we didn't know what to expect, and we didn't know what it would be like. And it's sort of,
It was
that we'd be
different.
learning on the job and figuring it
Yeah.
out as we go along.
I think it was different. I think there were lots of, I remember I kept saying to the girls, like, I kept thinking it was going to be so much worse than this. Like, I thought the seas were going to be horrendous the whole time, and actually we had some like really flat days, and I was like, what is this?
I have
Like,
to throw into that though the fact that you have the most amazing capability of completely blocking
Yeah,
out
I do.
your memory anything bad that ever happens, because the first 2 to 3 weeks are like 40-foot waves and 35 knot
because it was at the start, we were like, oh well, this is just
This
what the
is
ocean's
what it's
like.
like, yeah.
Okay, this is what the
So
whole
yeah,
thing's gonna be.
the first 2 weeks were the worst conditions that we had probably
Yeah.
for the whole time. So I think we got thrown into it, and we all just
Right, the deep
presumed
end.
that actually this must be what ocean rowing is like, and therefore we'll just have to suck it up and get on with it. And then we were all really confused for the next 8 weeks as to why it didn't get any worse and it was only better.
Rowing
Yeah.
into a
So,
headwind with one arm whilst watching for 30-foot waves
Yeah.
coming from the side.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things when you don't, until you've done it, it's impossible. You can watch as many documentaries and as many YouTube videos and speak to as many people as you can, but it's impossible to fully understand exactly what it's like.
Yeah,
And now I think it's really hard to put into words
it's very
exactly what
hard
it's like
to
and explain to
articulate it.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
so-
was pretty cold and wet for.
It
you know,
was
we were
very
thinking
cold and wet.
California, Pacific,
Warm.
you know,
Not
tropics,
Not
Hawaii,
warm.
and even our last row into Hawaii, we
Oh.
were in full Fowley gear, full wet weather gear, freezing cold, soaking wet.
Yeah.
Thinking,
It was like we did a full circle. It felt like
Yeah.
a apt end to way to end, but yeah.
Yeah, and then the other, I don't know, I think I always expected the row to be awful. Like, I think I always just thought that it was going to
And it
be
was.
really terrible. And it was in a way, but then it wasn't as bad as I thought. But yeah, certainly the seasickness at the start, like, I've been on, not spent a lot of time on boats before, but had never really gotten seasick, and then managed to vomit the whole way through every single one of our training rows, and then sort of sitting there before we left going, ooh, this could be a little bit unpleasant, perhaps. After, you know, we've done like 24-hour training rows, and then you get to come back to land and refuel and feel a bit better. So yeah, certainly the seasickness at the start was very, very hard, combined with all of the rough weather as well. But then it's also incredible, I think, what your body is capable of putting you through, and I think that's true for all of us had our different like physical you know, challenges along the way, and all of us, I'm really proud of how we all handled those things as well. Like, we all did really well, I think, to be able to sort of just like keep a strong mind and be able to get through it all. So
and it's been lovely actually to be told when we get back on land, people saying, I can't believe you girls were smiling all the time, and I can't
Yeah.
believe how you guys seem to be so sort of healthy and happy and sort of relaxed and all that stuff. And that actually has meant a lot, because you know, you do have to put a lot of effort into staying
Yeah,
positive, into staying upbeat, into looking after yourself and things like that. And so it's really nice to think that that has really actively made a massive impact and
Yeah.
difference on how our whole experience of the race was.
I think we just realised that we could either spend like day shifts and night shifts getting drenched by 40-foot waves and go into like a really bad place and think this is the worst thing ever, or we could just laugh. So like every time you got drenched by a wave, it just became really funny.
it was really funny when you got drenched.
Yeah, or start scoring target zones for flying fish and letting you on the body at night.
So I think we
you know.
just got a bit delirious and just laughed our way through 62
No
days.
other way
really.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It worked.
What was the process of toileting? Was it awkward? And did you ever get diarrhea?
It's a very specific question.
You're gonna start
I feel
out-
like it's maybe directed at
At
me.
first and by the end.
So I think toileting was one of my by far biggest concerns before we left. I'm sure, you know, if you're watching this, then you've probably seen photos of the boat. So, you know, the deck's only a few feet long, and there's sort of the toileting bucket is in the corner. And there's always somebody else on deck rowing, so it's sort of quite a
Facing you
confronting,
directly.
facing you directly. So there's always somebody just there. So yeah, it's very confronting, but actually we all accustomed like quite quickly. And then by the end of it, must sound very strange, because it's not strange to us at all. But you know, someone will be sitting on the oars, eating their lunch or having their snack or something, and you're there doing your business and having a chat to them and just looking in their eyes. And it's just become so normal that I think now we're almost worried about our own ability to be like socially appropriate now that we're back on land. And yeah, so you become very comfortable very quickly. Did we get diarrhea? That's a very specific question. Not really, but some upset stomachs in bits and pieces. But even then, we were very like open with each other about what was happening. Oh, with the follow-up question in terms of the logistics of using the bucket. So if you're doing a number one, you don't have to put any water in the bucket, you just use the bucket and then you tip it out and rinse it with the seawater. And then for the number twos, you half fill the bucket with seawater first and then do whatever, and then you empty it out and then rinse the bucket out. So
Because of toilet brush.
oh, because I maybe lost the toilet brush before we'd even used it. It floated
Day
off into the
two.
distance.
Day two. We were so proud that we'd
Who
remembered
did that
to buy
bowling?
a
Because it
toilet
wasn't
brush,
me.
and it floated off.
Anyway.
Never
That's the
mind.
only thing we lost
No,
though the
that
whole
was
time was that one toilet brush.
One of the biggest disasters of the whole trip, so
Yeah,
I think we're doing pretty good.
But we did alright, yeah.
So, next couple of questions from Chris Burns. What did you miss from daily life that you didn't think you would?
Food.
Food. Yeah, food.
Was there anything that like you regretted in daily life, and then suddenly halfway through the row you're kind of weirdly thinking about?
I really missed the gym, which sounds very odd, but like rowing becomes very, you literally just sit there and you're just moving up and down, and I missed like moving my body in different ways
Yeah.
and doing different things. So although we were doing like a minimum of 12 hours of exercise a day, I kept craving like going to the gym or like going for a run and wanting to do something different. Or like more exercise, because rowing doesn't become exercise in the end. Like rowing
It's
just
just
becomes like
It's a
your
repetitive
daily.
movement.
It's like you're at work kind
Yeah,
of thing.
rowing
And you're
like
just so
becomes
used
work.
to
Yeah, and you don't
you're
even
just so
think
used to it.
Yeah. So I like missed exercise, which was weird.
I think I really missed the kind of all of the external kind of visual and whatever stimulation of different things and of change and but then to be honest, by the end, you know, at first I just wanted to go for a walk. I kept dreaming of the high street where I live and like imagining I was going walking down the road and popping into different shops, like very unexciting places, the opticians, whatever.
The optician.
It's so weird.
You two both need to get
I had
your
a lot of
optician.
time. Yeah, we do actually. But I was like, going on these little journeys in my head just to sort of see and imagine being somewhere different. But by the end of it, it was like the endless ocean. We kept saying it was like being in the Truman Show and imagining there was just like a 3-mile radius around us.
You just feel like you live in a snow globe and somebody external is just going like,
It's
oh,
like
we're going
being-
to change the weather on
it's
you,
like
and we're
the
going to do
Hunger
this to
Games.
you. Yeah, like the Hunger
Yeah,
Games.
we
Except
kept
no,
thinking
Without the
dropping
death.
parachutes
No
No
down.
death. And, yeah.
Like waiting for these
Yeah.
parachutes to
But
go
it
down.
kind of became a bit like meditative at the end, having it, you know, just be so simple and straightforward. So I sort of stopped missing that.
Yeah.
Something that I thought that I would miss that I didn't was the internet in general.
Yes.
Like, I thought that, you know, it's like, how are we going to cope with that? Googling things without email, without, you know, social media, without whatever. And it was, never missed it at all. It was the most calming, incredible experience.
Yes.
I never really craved to Google anything the whole time. We had like downloaded Spotify playlists, so we sort of had access to some music. And it's actually one of the things that I found the most difficult since being back on land is, you know, is going back through everything that's sort of been happening online while we've been out on the boat, and we've sort of heard bits and pieces from friends and family about all the support and everything else, and then sort of coming back onto land and then having, you know, the like there's so many messages and all these things, and it's actually quite overwhelming to try to sort of come back and have this like volume of communication when we've been used to getting like a handful of text messages a day, and it's really it's been
I've like forgotten
quite
how
strange, quite hard.
I keep sending people texts that make no sense because I can't, like, my fingers don't work texting properly anymore. Like
Maybe we should get that checked.
But so it was a big deal for us having messages come through on the inReach or on the emails, and you know, the most menial, like limited information, 160 character text turned into a very exciting event.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would all report from our own family and friends, like,
Yeah.
so and so said this, and
Like,
they
it
had
makes-
bacon and eggs for breakfast, and the others would be like, really?
So to suddenly be bombarded with so many like different messages and information from everywhere, it's just like
So if we're a little slow to respond, then please
that's
bear
fine,
with us
yeah.
while we just reacclimatise to those communications and things. But yeah, thank you so much for all of your support. It's just incredible.
Massively. Just a bit spaced out.
So you've now broken 2 world records. You're the first trio to row the Pacific Ocean and the youngest trio to row any ocean in the world. How does that feel? Has it sunk in yet?
No,
No.
it's so bizarre.
Feels like it didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like a dream. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not, doesn't seem
And
real
I
at
think
all.
like for all of us, like we never really spoke about the world records when we were out on the ocean. Like it was never really. I don't think for any of us it was ever really, like we were doing this because we wanted to get the world records.
Yeah.
Like I remember when we got towards the end, we all kind of just looked at each other and we were like, we're like a mile from the finish line and we're about to break these set these world records, and it was just like the cherry on the top of everything. It was just that like it's such a nice and incredible thing to have, but it like wasn't the reason that we were
I think we
setting
knew
out to
that
do it. Like
the world records came with being successful in what we set out to do. So the focus the whole way was on getting to the finish, on
Yeah.
being successful. But actually, more importantly than that, it was about what the journey was like.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old thing of it's the journey, not the destination. But it really was.
It was, yeah.
And we really wanted this to be an experience that we could say we did it the right way, we did it the way we wanted to do it, we enjoyed it, we got so much from the actual event of it. And we knew that if we did all of that, and if at the end of it we were successful, that everything else would come with it. So that was just the bonus and the cherry on top,
like,
not the focus.
Yeah.
Even if there were going to be no world records, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I'd do it all again, and it would be just as meaningful and just as worth it. But yeah, it's just that little extra thing that sort of comes on top. That it's the experience itself was truly why we all did it. But yeah, it is. It's really incredible, and I'm sure it will sink in for us a little bit more, but we're not there yet. I think.
I think we're all as well. We're getting such lovely messages from people saying, you know, whether they've been following it with their kids and things. And the kids have been asking questions, and you know, I know one of them. Somebody said, that her little girl was asking, "Where are the boys? When are the boys going to row?" And she was like, "No, it's just the girls. The girls are doing it. They don't need boys." And it's little things like that you just think it's really awesome. As 3 women to have been the first to do something.
It's really
a really great opportunity, and it's been awesome to hear that perhaps that's kind of filtering into inspiring perhaps other people as well. That means so much. That's lovely.
So was there ever a moment when you thought you weren't going to make it to the finish, or was it always like the inevitable just over the horizon?
day one, race
Getting
start.
out of the bay.
So if you were following from the very beginning, so we were supposed to start on the Saturday, I think.
the second we were supposed
Yeah,
to
Saturday
start,
the second. But the weather in Monterey was terrible, and everyone, all the locals in Monterey, kept saying to us, you know, this is not normal weather for Monterey. We were freezing cold, and they kept saying, you know, this isn't normal weather, and we were thinking, oh great, like this is like what's going on, and so the race got delayed by 4 days, I think.
Yeah.
4 days. And we knew that it wasn't perfect conditions to set out in, but if we didn't leave that night, then there was going to be another delay of kind of 6 or 7 days, which then has all kind of effects later on in the race due to hurricane season. And so the race committee kind of said, you know, like the weather's good enough for you to get out, but it's not going to be easy, and you're going to have to row as hard as you can. So we kind of thought, all right, this is fine, we can do this, and we set off at 6 p.m. and I think by about 11 p.m. we were still in the bay, and we were still looking at land to the left of us and thinking that tree has not moved for 2 hours. Are we rowing? Like, are we actually going backwards? And
We just thought we were, you know, just getting blown back into the bay, and then we'd end up having to be
and I
towed
think
and rescued.
I think the saving grace for us was at one point we looked and we saw Bojangle, so Mick and Sparky, we saw their boat about probably like 40 metres away from us maximum, even closer maybe.
And this was like 8 hours into the race.
8 hours
and we'd
into
all
the race,
taken a very strange, we had to be a bit creative and take a very strange tack and sort of head off in a direction with the wind that would help us to clear the sort of headland of the bay, but actually was taking us in completely the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But it was after doing that and making progress and then taking the risk of trying to cut back to get out of the bay, and then suddenly out of nowhere in the darkness, Nick and Sparky appeared about 40 metres away, and we're like, oh, I think we've done the right thing.
So we were like, if we could see Mick and Sparky, then like we can't be doing too badly because Mick's rode an ocean before, so he knows what he's doing. So we thought, right, if we can see Mick and Sparky, like, we're going to be okay. Just keep going. And then suddenly the next thing we thought, right, we're around the headland. Like, we wanted. There's basically two routes out the bay. There was the Monterey Canyon, which if you saw in the tracker, Ripple Effect and United Nations both had enough kind of power in their boats. They got up a bit north and went out
due west.
Kind of due west, and that was our plan. But even with 2 of us on the oars, just we weren't strong enough and didn't have enough power to get the boat up there. And we were rowing either 2 up or 1 up. So we ended up having to go out Carmel Canyon, which is also where Bojangles and Anne went, which took us kind of south around the headland, which was kind of we knew we might end up there, but it was kind of, we knew if we ended up on that route that we were going to row straight into a storm. So yeah, I think probably day 1, we'd had quite a lot of people in Monterey cycle past and yell at us as they were cycling past our boat, you won't make it out the bay, and we just laughed it off, and I think
really encouraging.
We all suddenly thought, oh my god, we actually might not. But then the funny thing was that for the 2 weeks in Monterey, we'd just been told by everyone, getting off the shelf is the hardest part. So it's like the first 2 weeks is the hardest part. You're going to have to row as hard as you can. We ended up in Power Anchor, and we had some concerns that we were just getting blown further and further south. And then we woke up one day to a message from Chris, the race director, saying, "You're off the shelf," and we all sat here thinking, "What? We've just drifted off the shelf? Like this wasn't difficult." So I think once we were off the shelf and we knew that we were out of that kind of initial danger zone, I don't think any of us ever doubted that we wouldn't make it.
No, I think we hit the next phase then and went, right, game on.
Yeah, and even like we had hurricanes, and I don't think once we ever said like...
It would have, for all of us we know, it would have had to have been something extreme and external to happen to us that would have caused us to not finish. It was never going to be anything internal, because we were all just so committed from the get-go.
But it kind of became in different phases, and I keep sort of terming that first phase of the storms and bunkering down and everything as surviving, which was just doing whatever needed to be done to get through
Basics,
it. And it's not sustainable. It's ridiculously tough. It's pretty miserable in Broome at times, although we kept laughing through it. And then once we get pushed out the other side of that, we turn into what I sort of call thriving, which is where actually everything falls into place. We're in a routine, we know our shifts, we're having a giggle, we've got like funny little podcasts and things on the go that we're listening to.
We're
and
eating food,
we're
miracle.
Eating food. We're happy, we're laughing every so often, even though not for the first 29 days, the sun comes out. And all this stuff, you get starry skies, and that bit, suddenly you think, do you know what, however long this takes us, we can keep going.
We'll get there.
We can do this for as long as it needs.
Cool. So, one of the final questions from Chris is, complete this sentence. So we'll start with Elle and we'll work our way around. So after finishing the race, I will be glad never to see what again?
Your bums again. So we have there's a little condition called pizza bum that you get when you're ocean rowing that comes from, so you end up with so much salt. So it's like sitting on like really rough like salt crystals, and then you're sliding back and forth for like 12 hours a day, and you're getting thrown around in these waves, and it's very, very painful. And you need to manage it well to make sure that it doesn't deteriorate, that you sort of, the last thing you want to end up with is like infected sort of sores, and then you can't row. So a frequent part of our days was saying, hey, can you check my bum? And sort of like giving yourself a small wedgie and showing each other your bottom, which sounds very strange. So it will be nice to just have life where we don't have to constantly expose our bottoms to each other to check the spots that are there. I had it too, it wasn't just there, just for the record.
I never want to see a flying squid again, purely because I did not know squid could fly, and I'd never really seen a squid. And I was rowing one day, and something hit me, and I thought, what has just jumped out of the water and hit me? I turned around, and there was 4 squid, but they were probably like a good 20 centimetres, 25 centimetres long. They were huge. And like fish, I can cope with flying, like, because that kind of makes, well, it doesn't really make sense. You get flying fish, but flying squid, like, no. I just wasn't okay with it, to be honest. Like, yeah, so no, flying. I never want to see a flying squid again.
Yeah, mine is fairly similar. Mine though is the flying fish because I never need to see a flying fish on a direct trajectory to my face ever again. It's like bad enough when it's pitch black and there's no moonlight and the waves, you can't even see the waves coming. But then to literally have the constant kind of bow, 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 bow of fish on a direct path into your eyeballs is not fun. I had to kind of start zoning off my body and awarding them points for where they hit to kind of turn it into a little game. But even then, just sort of having fish hit you and then start flapping around you.
And then the next morning, like whenever you move anything on the deck of the boat, just finding like a family of 5 tiny fish hiding behind. It was this constant thing of throwing these tiny dead fish off the boat, and sort of just you can just smell fish and not know where it's coming from. And we cleaned the boat yesterday, and we found some fish.
We found some rotten
that
fish,
were not in the shape of fish.
But the biggest horrors were when we'd get into the cabin after a shift, and then every so often the sun would come up and you'd look in the cabin, you'd be like, how is there a fish in here?
Like lift up like the
Just
mattress in the
come in
cabin
on
and there's a fish in there, and it's like how it's come in on one of us, like it's been in the hood of your jacket or it's been like
Sat on your arm.
somewhere. Oh, it's not nice.
So we're going to take a short break just to look at the moment you guys passed halfway, and then when we come back, we'll just ask you what you thought when you crossed the halfway part.
Cool.
100 miles to go until Diamond Head Lighthouse. What are we going to celebrate with, Megan?
We are going to see Amaretto Kaz.
Amaretto!
With miniature amaretto.
And what else?
And tinned pineapple.
Woohoo!
We're going to pretend we didn't see pineapple chunks floating in the bilge after our pizza at the first week. And we have tins of condensed milk. Who knew that was party food?
I've never had. I don't even know what condensed milk is.
It's something that we haven't had for the last 39 days in a row, so it's very...
So tell us, how was it when you crossed the halfway point? Did it finally realise that it was doable? Did you feel like you were on the downhill stretch, or was it just the next milestone you were aiming for?
Yeah, I think halfway in miles doesn't come halfway in days. So the first half of the race is really slow because you actually have to head south. You can probably see on track, everyone has to head quite far south before you then pick up the trade winds to head west. So it's not just a direct line from California to Hawaii. So I think 1,200 miles had always been that milestone, and it almost felt like once we got to 1,200 miles, we were like, oh, we're nearly there. Like,
It really did.
yeah, we kind of celebrated, and we were like, right, we're nearly there. Like next 1,000 miles, and then it's just home straight. So
We knew it would start to tick down really quickly after that because we could start to pick up more speed. One day, a few weeks after that, we hit 75 miles in one day, which compared to the first few weeks where we were tracking south, desperately trying to push west, rowing just with one arm and only being able to get like 1 or 2 degrees west, having calls with Stokey or Weather Russo
celebrating that we were getting 6 miles in a
Yeah.
day west.
Like you've done 20 miles and 6 of them were in the right direction. It's like we're trying.
So to then be sort of hitting 4.7 knots and 75 miles covered in a day, which apparently we're told is the biggest distance any crew has covered in a day in the race.
Yes,
which is cool.
Beat the boys.
So we knew that was coming, and so it was it was massively motivating at 1,200 miles.
And we had a tin of pineapple and a tin of condensed milk as a treat.
Which,
Very
looking
weird
back, it's like
Very
we were
weird
walking
things
around
to
the
take.
supermarket trying to buy our snacks, and we'd chosen the weirdest things to celebrate with. I was like, we could have chosen a bag of M&Ms, but no, we got a tin of condensed milk because that's something that you drink and eat in your normal life.
It was literally just on the shelf in front of us.
And we were like, oh, that'll be a great gift for ourselves. So yeah, look, we'd probably do our gifts maybe slightly differently. Not the pineapple. Pineapple was great.
Pineapple was good, yeah.
Right, so the next question's from Naomi O'Keefe. It says, what was your biggest fear before you left, and is that still a fear now, or is that just being blown out of proportion by the ocean?
Hi Gnomes, good to hear from you. My biggest fear was probably just storms and the weather. We all knew obviously that we'd get bad weather, we'd get bad storms, and just sort of not really knowing, like I hadn't spent any time in the open ocean before, and just not knowing what that was going to feel like, how afraid would you be when that happened, was certainly my biggest sort of unknown. And then heading out, and then obviously us heading straight into that first storm, And our boat, Danielle, is just incredible, and she is so stable, and just we could not have had a better like craft to be out there. And big shout out to Justin who built our boat.
Justin and Sea Saver.
And you know, I would feel safer in our boat than I would probably in a sailing boat or in any, you know, in many other vessels, I think. And so for me anyway, that fear got sorted out very quickly, and then you realise that you are actually capable of handling it. The boat's capable of handling it. You know all the equipment. You know everything to do anyway. So it's sort of more of a fear of the unknown probably than it was of storms, but yeah, quickly resolved.
Yeah, I think mine was basically exactly the same, just kind of the unknown. But I think also going into it, like I just had a fear of not finishing it. I think for all of us, like the last however many months like we've been involved, like we have literally spent every waking hour and every waking minute putting everything we possibly could into it. But interestingly, when I was out in the ocean, that mindset completely changed, and it became a kind of like what we were accomplishing each day. But if for some reason the row had finished, it wouldn't have felt like a failure, and it wouldn't have felt as if we hadn't accomplished anything. It would have just been as big a kind of sense of accomplishment of what we had achieved up to that point.
And completely gutting.
And completely, it would have been gutting, yeah.
Yeah.
But like that fear kind of changed for me. But I think like when we first set off, I just had this huge like fear that, oh my god, what happens if something goes wrong, and like what happens if something breaks and we can't finish it, and whatever. And thankfully, nothing. Thankfully, we got here. So
Yeah. I think the unknown was obviously a massive fear, but that was also the biggest excitement about it. Was finding out what it was I didn't know that I should or shouldn't be afraid of, and it was amazing to then realise that suddenly I sort of built all of this strange kind of instinctive sense towards, you know, I'd see a million different types of wave, and I'd start to intuitively know exactly how they were going to hit the boat and what it meant and how to sort of respond or react or manoeuvre the boat to kind of deal with them. It's really odd, like wave reading. I think we've all developed as a new skill, and looking at the sky and knowing exactly what the weather's going to be doing and changing every sort of 5 minutes and stuff. But I really was not looking, I mean, fish is a theme for me, and I really wasn't looking forward to what was in the ocean. I don't like big things in deep water, so of course go across the Pacific. But I have to say, the stuff we've seen has seen like a swordfish and sharks and all the cool stuff, and it's just made me be like, oh yeah, I could get in there with that.
Yeah.
yeah, you did go from like day one when we were saying we want to see a shark to looking at us and being like, do you though? Like, we don't want to see a shark, to when we actually saw a shark being like, oh my god, there's a shark, like get closer, get closer.
Yeah.
So yeah, Megan had a transformation.
A fishy one.
A fishy one.
So Amanda Herman says, how did you actually manage to get sleep in those conditions with the waves and the cramped spaces, etc.?
Oh.
You just, hey Amanda. You really can't. It's the strangest thing. You figure out that you can only sleep lying on your back because the movement of the boat, if you try and lie on your side, you literally just start flopping from side to side. You can't do it. And when there's multiples of us in the cabin, you probably have about 2 foot of back space, and then your limbs have to go propped up somewhere. Your knees will be bent, and then you'll find that, like we did often, then they'd start flopping and hitting people on the head. You just, there's
I used
no
to sleep a
room.
lot and have Megan's knees just like, every time there was a wave, Megan's knees would be like bang on my head, and I'd like lift her knees off my head and like push them to the other side, and then like another wave would come, Megan's knees would be like bang on my head, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a long 45 minutes.
You'd start to actually be reassured that you were wedged in when so frequently the way it works out, Elle would be sleeping in a certain part of the thing when I came off my shift and I'd come in, and it became like I knew my little spot. I'd prop my head against the net, and I would have basically the wall, which I'd put a pillow so that if a wave I wouldn't hit my head on the wall, and then Elle's bum was my other sort of padding on the other side.
You're welcome.
And so it was ridiculously uncomfortable, but we're just tired.
You get really tired, like you fall asleep much, you do actually fall asleep quite easily. I fell asleep one night propping with my forehead on the wooden bit of the wall, and then had like a bruise on my head for about 3 days afterwards. But I was so tired, I slept through it for an hour until whoever else came into the cabin. I was like, oh, this is not good.
So,
you will sleep through anything in a way.
Elle was also really good at sleeping whilst rowing.
God, yeah.
Like, unbelievable. I'd be rowing behind her, and after about 45 minutes, I'd think, Elle's been really quiet for the last 45 minutes. And I'd get off shift, and I'd be like, Elle, were you asleep? And she'd be like, uh-huh. And she would just been rowing, but like you couldn't tell. Like she'd be doing like good rowing strokes, but she would have been fast asleep
Just
for 45
inbuilt,
minutes.
like robotic process, just to you just keep going. But yeah, the middle of the night, that graveyard shift. So mine was from 2:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. We all had different ones, and it was hard to stay awake some nights, and it was not possible.
I think one of the most disappointing and horrible moments on the boat the whole time for all of us was we rowed and slept in 3 hour shifts, so 3 hour rowing, 3 hour in the cabin. And your 3 hours in the cabin, because the way we rotated, meant you'd have 1 hour with somebody else in there already asleep, and then you'd move into the other space in the cabin while they went onto their row, and you'd have 2 hours in a different part of the cabin. I say a different part, it's
like
about
30
3
centimetres
inches
away,
away.
yeah.
You know, at the back of the cabin, not in their way for the next 2 hours, and so you'd have an hour in there on your own before the next person came in and started on the cycle. So that 1 hour alone in the cabin was your only chance to put your legs straight.
Yeah.
And we started by the end of it, when we moved back into that position, the other people was the person was getting ready to get out of the cabin, we would have to say to them, if I fall asleep before you're gone, can you wake me up and tell me to lay my legs out straight?
Guys, can you remind me to straighten my legs when you leave?
Because otherwise you'd be woken up by the next person coming in, realise you were still asleep in a ball and be like, no!
I think I missed my window for straight legs.
It's so bizarre. So bizarre.
So, and Eric Megan says, did you ever have any disagreements over whose turn it was to row?
It was just non-negotiable, really.
Yeah, it was not.
We had a roster, so yeah, there was never any ambiguity about whose turn it was to row, so we didn't have that. We didn't really have
Any
disagreements.
disagreements,
Like
no.
something I think that we all did really well was just, you know, everybody's obviously got, you know, I think all of us are sort of leaders within our own right in many ways, and I think all of us did a good job of choosing at, you know, frequent times to just say, like, I'm just going to choose not to care about this thing, and you just sort of put your own, you know, feelings away, and I think all of us were doing that sort of constantly. But the upshot of that was we got along really, really well on the boat, and we didn't have to come to, you know, blows over different things. And that was down to, I think all of us just genuinely worked really hard to make sure that that happened. All of us made a commitment that that was how we were gonna make sure that the boat ran. I think it's the thing that I'm one of the most proud of for how we handled it on the boat, because it's hard, it's challenging being in such a tiny space with just 2 other people. And when you've got shared communications, you can't like leave, you know, if you have a disagreement or with someone at home, you know, you can leave the situation, you can go and vent about it to someone, or you can go for a walk, or you can whatever, but you know, you can't, there's no way that you can vent about like Kaz really annoyed me today or something, like, you know, you can't.
If you wanted to go sulk, you'd have to move yourself 2 foot away. Like, I am now ignoring you. So it just didn't happen. It's just not possible.
So you have to get very good at just processing things sort of internally, and like we did, you know, we tried to raise issues as and when they happened, but for the most part, we really
I think the fact that we had 24/7, 62 days. We had 3 hours on, 3 hours off. You know, however many shifts that is. 4 shifts of 3 hours every day at certain set times, not changing, and we didn't miss a single shift.
Yeah.
Whatever happened, however we felt, we all went through things that were, you know, pretty rough and horrible. Whether it was being really sick, whether it was being soaking wet, freezing cold, whether it was having claw hands and like tendonitis and stuff. So each of us had those different things going on, and at no point did any of us feel that it meant that we were exempt or that people should pull their, should pull the weight for us. We all sort of had, you know, that, I think just mutual like appreciation and respect for each other, and knowing that no, we're in this together. It's not going to work unless
and we knew everybody else was doing it tough, and
yeah. But at times you have to consciously remind yourself of that, don't you?
Certainly,
You just have to.
There was certainly a theme of sort of, you know, really trying to have that empathy, and even if you feel a little bit frustrated at someone else, just trying to remind yourself that, you know, their behaviour and your own behaviour as well is just going to be a symptom of something that they're going through at the time, that they're tired, they're in pain, they feel sick, they feel nauseous, they miss home, whatever it is. And so conscious process of trying to remind yourself of this is just a symptom of something that they're going through, they're having a tough time, you're having a tough time as well, and just really trying to be very consciously kind to each other. And that's been a really big takeaway from, I think, the whole trip as well, just to take forward into just life in general, is remembering that, it's all just a symptom of what each person's going through.
Cool. So then, moving across to what's underneath you whilst you're rowing, let's talk about the wildlife. What wildlife are you wanting to see? What do you not want to see? And what did you kind of get surprised about seeing?
I was desperate to see a shark.
Yeah.
I really wanted to see a shark, and then it all came true. We saw 2 sharks. I think we were really lucky with wildlife. We were saying in the day, actually, I think we ticked off like so we saw sharks, we saw whales, we saw dolphins.
We saw tons of mahi-mahi, which look amazing.
Yes.
They'd be like these
Like
electric
bright
blue.
blue and yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
If you don't know
flashes
what
in
a
the
mahi
water.
mahi is, Google it and look at these fish because they're just
Yeah.
stunning. Like they were everywhere. And
We had a bit of excitement, didn't we, when we saw suddenly, just really close to the boat, a couple of metres off, I think a couple of tuna suddenly leapt out the water and went flying. And then there was like a bit of a commotion and flashing about, and then a mahi-mahi leapt out the water and was turning around, and there was obviously something much bigger chasing them all. And then this poor mahi-mahi then leapt out the water, but met our boat. Wasn't
Slammed
expecting it
into
to
the
be there.
cabin.
Slammed into the cabin. We honestly thought we were going to have this thing land on our laps, like this big. But then it fell back in, and then we figured out what was chasing it. It was probably about, not massive, but about a 6-foot shark. And we were like,
it stayed around for a while. We saw it in the waves, kind of just
You're just cruising about.
cruising
You'd
around.
imagine,
It wasn't
like-
that interested in us. It kind of didn't really come that close to the boat.
Yeah.
we were like, shark!
Yeah.
We were like, shark!
Yeah, it was very exciting. Yeah, and it was nice when we rode in the morning. We came past the head. We had 2 giant sea turtles
Massive. They were
kind of swim up to the
amazing.
boat and swim right past the boat, and that was the last bit of wildlife that we've been talking about that we hadn't seen.
Yeah.
And so it kind of like, yeah, we saw everything really.
The birds were creepy too.
A lot of birds, yeah. I'll say that the only really sad thing that we did say in the boat was that we didn't see as much wildlife as we probably thought we would. We'd have days where we'd see like some dolphins or we'd see a shark, but it wasn't kind of like everywhere you looked there was wildlife. But we did see every day we saw so much plastic.
Yeah.
So we probably saw like more plastic in the ocean than we did wildlife.
Yeah.
And like not even just little bits. Like every day we'd see like one substantial sized piece of plastic, whether it be like a giant plastic crate
Hit
or
my oar and
yeah,
that's a
Megan
crate
hit
one day.
Megan nearly broke an oar in a like big plastic crate, and even just looking in the water you can see lots of little bits of plastic, and
Like we know
which
that
was sad.
when you're just sat on the surface, you see the tiniest percentage of what's there in the ocean, virtually nothing,
Yeah.
whether it's animals, wildlife, whatever. So to actually have seen that amount of rubbish, of plastic, of things,
And it's
way
just
more
within
than
what's
within
within 10 metres of our boat. 'Cause
yeah,
that's all we
and
can
you
see,
happen to
let
catch
alone
out of the
what's-
corner of your eye,
Yeah.
to then know what must actually be in there, the
The
real
volume,
scale of it
yeah.
was pretty horrifying.
Cool. So we're going to jump back just to have a look at that shark video, just because everyone seemed far too excited to say they're that close to a shark.
What have we seen?
I think it's a shark. Shark! I think it's Bruce.
Where's it gone? There he is.
Bruce! What are you? Here, sharky. Come closer.
So Ellen from the Great Pacific Race wants to know, what were those last 24 to 48 hours like? How were they different from the remaining?
Just have a round of applause
60
for Ellen.
days?
Oh yeah, round of applause to Ellen. Thanks Ellen for your work.
We miss you.
We do.
Last 24, 40. It was
Completely
very
different.
weird. Like it was. We
cold.
didn't just sit there every 20 minutes or hour or so, just going. We're gonna get there. It's
So we hit Maui, didn't we? The last 48
Yeah.
hours we saw the islands for the
Yeah.
first time. So Maui started looming out at us as this sort of
Just
shadow in
grey,
the distance.
yeah.
We can see the outline. And we rode through the day there, and then we sort of kept going. We were like, this is like there's something there. And then we rode through the night. And then the next morning, pretty much at daylight, suddenly there was Molokai. And Kaz, I think, was like, it's green! It's green! And I rushed out the cabin, and it was like...
And
I
it was
think
just
that's the
enormous
video.
cliffs, like going from the day before to just seeing this little tiny sliver of land that we had to really sort of focus hard to try to say, like, is it land? Is it a cloud? Is it land? And then we woke up the next day to
And it
these
was there,
cliffs of
yeah.
like Molokai to go. It was that was one of
It's
probably the
immense.
most astonishing moments I think of the whole
I
trip.
think that was the first time that the three of us really let it sink in that we were we'd actually almost done it as well.
Yeah.
Like I think we were all so respectful of the ocean, and like we made a really big pact that even when we saw like Oahu as we came in, like none of us said like, oh, we've done it, we've only got 20 miles to go. We've all like, we've got 20 miles to go, we're not celebrating, we're not calling ourselves ocean rowers, like we're not
safety
we're not
first,
doing
no
anything
accidents, no
until like
mistakes.
And it was rightly so, because
the weather was terrible. The last 24 hours was horrendous.
So when we timed it, we wanted to make it into Cocoa Head at sunrise to get our first glimpse properly up close of Oahu at sunrise, and then come along and start the day that way and the last day. So it meant we crossed the channel between Molokai and Oahu at night, which it's actually
sketchy.
very exposed, and
Yeah.
we knew that we were having to try and make it in before about 10 o'clock in the morning, because the sort of impact of Hurricane Hector was going to kick up the winds and things like that. So we were sort of trying to get across this channel, but thought, yeah, we should be all right. And then just like 16 miles to go, which is, normally would be about 8 hours rowing or something.
Yeah.
And the winds are kicking up, the waves are getting massive, it's a freezing cold breeze.
It's
Everything's coming
raining,
from the
like
side,
driving
pouring
rain.
It was like the worst weather and conditions we'd had for about 4 weeks.
It was like,
and it reminded us of like week 1.
we were talking about like getting highlights in the last week, and we had like an amazing starry sky, we saw the turtles, we saw the thing, all this like all the perfect bits, we got a little glimpse of them all in the last week. Well, that last night was like a low lights package.
Well, yeah, it was like the final. It was like we're testing you until the finish. Like you had a hard start, you're gonna have a hard finish.
And then
But also it was like it's nice to get to the finish line, knowing that you've really like earned it as
We've
well.
still
We were like,
worked
right,
for it.
we've really got to push
Nothing-
right through to the end.
Nothing complacent, it
Yeah.
really was a battle actually,
It
right
was.
to the end.
Yeah.
But amazing.
Cool. So what do you think is the biggest takeaway right now? Obviously, it'll probably change over the next few months as things settle in. But right now, what do you feel is the biggest achievement of the race?
Oh.
That is really
It's a
hard
hard
This
question.
is another one
It's,
from Ellen. So
Yeah.
It's from Ellen.
Oh, Ellen.
Oh, Ellen.
I have to ask the hard questions.
I think one of the biggest achievements for all of us is, we said it was very much a focus on the experience and not necessarily the outcome in terms of, records and things like that, but the journey that we're on. And I think one of the biggest outcomes is for all of us to have that sort of affirmation and reaffirmation of how we can sort of go about things, how we can all be sort of very resilient, how we can adapt to really, really crazy, unknown, wild situations that none of us could have anticipated, and kind of have our focus in the right place. And I don't think there are many sort of sets of other two girls that I could be on that boat and have that same experience with. So somehow we all managed to come together and come at it in exactly the same way, in the right way. And I think, just I would say like massive hats off to you guys for being able to do that, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of for all of us and as a crew.
Yeah. Well said, mate.
It's the equivalent of a hug for me as a verbal.
Verbal hug. Meg doesn't do hugs.
No.
We tried to convert her, but it didn't work.
So a question from Kobe Harris says, if someone was thinking about rowing on an ocean, what advice would you give them? And what about advice for future rowers who already know they're doing an ocean? What would you recommend, or
I
what's
think-
the cheat sheet?
I think if anyone's thinking of rowing an ocean, just do it.
Do it.
Like, it is the best thing that I've ever done. I think probably the best thing that
It's the most profound experience of my
Yeah.
life by bar none, bar absolutely nothing
Yeah.
comparable.
and
I think
just do it. And I think sorry, you go.
No, well, I was just going to say, I think just do it. And a huge part of just do it is not overthinking what to expect, and go into it with the biggest flexibility in your mind as to what this experience would be like, what it would feel like. Don't think, I've rowed before and I know how this will be, or it's just not comparable to anything. And I think you just have to go into it having that flexibility. And Erden said something awesome to us. He said so many awesome things to us. Frankly, he's
Our
incredible.
safety officer, one of the Great Pacific Race team.
Yeah, and insanely experienced ocean rower himself is immense. But Erden said to us at the start when we were in Monterey, everything you need to know, you'll know after a week of being on the ocean.
And it's so true.
And it's true. So you just have to get out there and just do it, and have your mind be ready to adapt and deal with it.
And just know that it's not the you're thinking about rowing an ocean, thinking about doing or any big adventure, it's not the current version of yourself that's going to be doing it. You know, you're going to go through training, you're going to go through different things before you actually get out there, and then you're still learning every single day while you're there. So if you feel unprepared, I got on the boat feeling ridiculously unprepared after just, 6 weeks or so. But you really are capable of so much more than you think. You just have to trust in yourself, trust in the people around you enough to be able to put yourself in that situation and give yourself a chance to actually grow into whatever that is. And I'd say as well, make sure if you want to row an ocean, make sure you do want to do it for the right reasons, which is just for the experience itself. Don't do it because you want to have just completed it, I think, or you want to be able to post about it online or whatever else it is. And I think all of us would have still done this even if nobody else ever knew that we did it. I think we would all have still done it anyway, even if nobody even knew.
When it gets really tough, and there are real low points, and there are times when you're scared, and there are times when you're miserable, and there are times when all you want to do is get off that boat. Anybody would say that, however positive the experience. But if in your head, if in your head you don't have a real solid reason that comes from inside you that motivates you to get yourself out of that and carry on, you're not going to carry on. You can't want to be the person that rows an ocean. You have to actually feel it and drive yourself towards that.
I think as well, when I first set out, everyone said to me, the hardest part of rowing an ocean is getting to the start line. And you kind of laugh and think, what, harder than the row? And don't get me wrong, the row itself is incredibly challenging and hard, but that journey to the start line is so time consuming, and you put your life and soul into it, and there's days where you think everything's going wrong, and you're trying to get sponsors and you're emailing, you're speaking to people, and it feels like you're not getting anywhere, but then there's days where suddenly something comes through and you think, oh, this is why I've done it, or someone make a connection with someone and you think, oh, this is amazing. And so I think it's like don't ever, however hard things get on the build up to the row, just don't ever give up, and if you truly want to row an ocean, you will get to the start line, and everything will kind of work itself out. And I think I was just the three of us as well, that we had that such flexibility that none of us said, this is what it's going to be like, or this is the way I want to do stuff. But equally, we turned up to Monterey so well prepared. And we put in so much effort into the planning and making sure we'd done all our courses, and just making sure that each of us knew exactly what we needed to do, when we were going to get everything done. Kind of had a really tight schedule that we kind of stuck to and worked to in Monterey. And I think there's so much behind the scenes work that goes into it that you can't just take anything for granted.
I think also just pick the brains of anybody and everybody that you can who's rowed something, and what
everyone wants to talk about it.
Everyone wants to talk about it, and what you'll find is they all have a completely different opinion on the same thing.
Yeah.
So kind of take that with a pinch of salt too, and just gather all the information.
Yeah. If you're thinking about rowing an ocean, contact us. We'd love to speak to you about it. We would love to hear from you.
Some point,
please let us know, or any grand scale, any type of adventure. Let us know. Call us.
Or invite us.
Yeah, we'll come.
So you mentioned the courses before, and obviously you guys didn't just turn up and just get in the rowboat and go, I think it's that way. What courses did you actually have to go through?
A little bit.
So
Go west.
Go west, yeah. So as part of Great Pacific Race, there's some mandatory courses we had to complete. So we had to do First Aid at Sea, which basically is a standard first aid course, but takes you through kind of how you do CPR in a really small enclosed space, things you just haven't really thought about. For us, we do 1,200 miles from land. If something goes wrong in that boat, you can't just call the Coast Guard and have a helicopter out to you in 4 hours. It could be 2 or 3 days before someone else rocks up to that boat. So the first aid one is so important. We had to do sea survival, which, although is a really serious course, is actually also really fun. So you get to inflate the life rafts, you get to kind of float around with your life jackets, climb in and out of life rafts, and do all the drills, which they're skills you hope you never ever have to use. But actually, we all got on that boat knowing that if for some reason our boat did sink and we had to get into that life raft, all three of us knew exactly what to do, the processes to do it, how we would do it, so that was great. We had to do kind of a beginner's yachting, so in the UK it's a competent crew one. Elle had a slightly different one, being in Australia. The basis gets you spending a certain number of days at sea, takes you through kind of all the basics of, real simple stuff, kind of just crewing and understanding, working as a team, and that was really great. Then we had to do Yacht Master, which is the pain of everyone's life. But so that's kind of the theoretical side. That basically takes you through. So if we lost our navigation equipment, we had all of our charts, and we knew exactly how to use the charts and how we would navigate ourselves from point A to point B.
So it covers everything through from navigation to meteorology to passage planning to just, I mean, it's the most incredibly detailed thing, you know, and then we're sitting through a lot of it, talking about, learning about like tidal rates and tidal streams, and, you know, thinking, I'm not sure in the middle of the Pacific this is going to...
How many tides?
We don't need to plan with the tides, but okay. So, but it's amazing, it's a huge amount of knowledge that's
and if anything had gone wrong out there, we knew that we were...
If we'd lost all of our electrics, basically, we went from people who have basically never really sailed before, have no idea what we're doing out in the ocean, to people who we know that if all the electrics go out on our boat, which happens a lot, you know, there's a lot of water, batteries don't mix very well.
We would have made it to Hawaii.
We could still have navigated ourselves, we could still have got the paper charts out that we had and plotted where we were and got our way across a endless, identical body of ocean in the right direction to Hawaii, which is...
we had to have VHF radio, which is basically a license you have to do, which teaches you how to talk on the radio correctly. Because although when you see a ship for the first time in like 22 days, you just want to be like, hi!
Hello people!
We were very good with our radio etiquette, and we followed all our radio etiquette very well in talking to everyone.
And it was necessary sometimes, because we did one time we had to we had a massive container ship, like cargo ship, passing behind us, so it's like they're not on a course with us, it's okay, we don't need to radio them and say, have you seen us, please don't run us down. But then about half an hour later we suddenly saw that, hang on a minute, there's this massive container ship and it's turned round and it's 0.4 mile away staring at us in the face, and we had to use our radio etiquette to very politely, insist that we were not in distress and did not need rescuing, because they were very keen to rescue us.
They thought we were a life raft.
It's like we couldn't
Being
possibly
an
be
For
there
an
by
orange
choice.
boat, people thought that we were constantly in distress in a life raft. We're like, no, we meant to be here.
And it was quite difficult to explain to people that we had actually chosen to row ourselves in this boat, and we definitely did not need rescuing. It was lovely. The 300 metre container ship did do a 3-point turn in the middle of the Pacific
They went right up their route to
come and try and check that we were okay. So yeah,
we were fine.
So then, going back to that preparation, how much rowing experience had you got before you decided to do the Great Pacific Race?
I think Elle was probably the most experienced rower.
I rowed at college, at university, for a bit over a year. Probably not even that. Shout out to Grace College, University of Queensland. But then that was about 10 years ago, so really I had not been in a rowing boat for a long time, but know how to do this motion, so that was helpful.
I signed up for the race in July last year, and then thought, I don't know if I actually like rowing, so I should go and try this out. So I joined Loughborough Rowing Club, and so massive thank you to them, thank you to everyone at Loughborough Rowing Club who taught me to row and was so enthusiastic and didn't look at me weirdly when in the Learn to Row course they went along the line and asked why you were here, and everyone said, I've just used to row as a child or want a new kind of way to get fit, and I sat there and said, I've just signed up to row the Pacific but I've never rowed, so I thought it was a good idea to come down. And they took everything in their stride and embraced me and took me out rowing as much as they could and got me some rowing partners. So I rowed for about 6-7 months probably on and off before we got on the boat. And then there's Megan.
Yeah, I've often thought rowing would be fun, but I've never ever in my life got on a rowing boat. So I've still never flat water rowed, and the only form of rowing or boat I've ever done or got onto is Danielle. So yeah, why start small when you can do the Pacific?
Like really, if you're thinking about rowing an ocean, you don't need to have...
No.
The rowing is like the least important part of rowing an ocean. So don't think that you need to have rowed to be able to row, because you can learn that on the boat. Honestly, you'll have that down in about 10 minutes. It's all the rest of the stuff that's the really hard stuff. So although rowing seems like it's a big part of it, it's really not that important in so many ways.
You have to figure out that you can enjoy the rowing. But in terms of technique and experience...
And like there's the technique, when there's waves coming like this, half the time your oar's not even in the water and you're getting smacked in the head anyway. Like flat water rowing doesn't really equate over to ocean rowing. They're very different.
Feathering your oars is not gonna...
Yeah.
So Kaz, Junior Cook says she guessed the paddle boards off Mordy are probably a little bit different now. probably seem like kindergarten. But what do you think? What's been like the biggest change you think you'll see in your life from now on, having done such an achievement?
I think for me it's just, this has really just confirmed that if there's something you really want to do and you put everything into it, that anything is possible. I mean, me and Elle had a really good conversation on the boat one day about how, like, you look at stuff and think like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But actually I've now come off this boat and I keep looking at stuff and thinking, but I can do that. Like, things that before I kind of thought like, well, that's so far out of my comfort zone, or God, like, I'm not that kind of person, I could possibly go out and do that. Now I think my mindset's completely changed, and you kind of look at things and you think, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And yes, I think I've just got a bit of a new outlook on life.
It's just a sense of self-belief, and it's a new sense of just calm confidence that, you know, you can, if you can handle this, and you can handle being in the ocean for 62 days, 18 hours, 36 minutes, whatever. If you can, you know, then you can actually handle whatever it is, and that even if you don't quite know how you're going to get through it at the time, that you'll cope, you'll adapt, you'll do whatever it takes to be able to get through it. And that is, I think, yeah, I have a calmness that I don't think I've ever had before, which is probably one of my biggest takeaways, and I hope that it sticks around.
Right, so, seasickness is obviously something that everyone kind of gets, Elle perhaps more than most. How did you deal with seasickness, and any advice on seasickness?
Seasickness, you deal with it by vomiting.
We should just say that Elle had the worst seasickness. Chris said Elle had the worst seasickness they've ever seen in the Great Pacific Race, and she was violent. She had like chronic seasickness for the 2 weeks that we were doing our row training, and not once complained. And then
I think I complained a little.
well, yeah, but not that much. And then on the boat itself, everyone was a bit worried about Elle when the race started, getting on the boat, because they kept saying.
I feel like I didn't really realise this
Yeah.
until I got back. I feel
Everyone
like
kept saying,
a bit of a secret
oh,
from
the
me.
seasickness will go, you know, just go out and do a few more training rows and she'll be fine. And it just kind of got worse and worse. And then on the boat, Elle didn't eat for 17 days.
It was, yeah, like very minimal, like just
Yeah.
little tiny.
So when we're talking about
bits.
seasickness, like, Elle had the worst seasickness probably anyone has ever experienced.
It was, yeah, and there were certainly times when there was no way I was ever going to choose to get off the boat. I would have had to have been dragged off the boat, literally kicking and screaming. But there were certainly times when I wondered if, my body was going to be able to just, hold up to that level of, you know, no food, no drink, and sort of, felt like it was shutting down a little bit at different points. And but I don't know. It's just when you want something, and when you just want to, when you want to complete something, and when you want to achieve something. I've never felt a drive like that before in my life, and it's down to these guys as well. Like, if it wasn't for these guys, I wouldn't have gotten through that. You know, like, they helped me eat, they made water. Like, I couldn't have my eyes open in the cabin. Like, I was completely useless.
But you didn't miss a row shift.
I didn't miss a row shift. I didn't know there was an hour where at 4:30 in the morning Meg came out, and I was like, I can't do it. So I missed an hour.
You didn't miss it. It just got cut short a little bit.
Just a little bit short. I got an early mark. But yeah, it is. It's incredible what your body can do when you just want something. Just to, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that is down to, again, the thing about rowing for the right reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing why you want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, like, no one likes being sick. We
I loved it. I had a great time.
like, me and Meg were a bit sick, and I
It
was
was
just,
catching us by surprise, you were like,
sick.
"Ooh."
Yeah, but you'd be rowing, and then you'd be like, oh no, I'm going to be sick, and you would just put your oars down, like, lean over the side of the boat, be sick, and be like, oh, I feel a bit better now, and then just
Carry
keep
on.
rowing. But it does pass. Like, so if anyone does get seasick, like, it might take you a few days, or it might take you a few
3
weeks, but it does pass, and actually, like, it's a bit grim for a while, but
You also get very used to it though as
Yes.
well. Like, I still remember I got off the satellite phone to Chris, the race director, one day, and this was getting quite. It was like a couple of weeks in, and was very used to it. And I remember feeling really ill. Meg was rowing outside. I remember I'd stuck my head out of the cabin, and I was vomiting into the bucket. But in between, I was trying to tell Meg what we said on the phone. So it was like being sick and then saying, and then he said, and then like we'd just be sick again, and then carry on the conversation and be like smiling in between. And I remember thinking, or seeing myself in that moment and going like, you've got this, like even if you can carry on until the end. But yeah, it's just amazing the way that your body responds, and you just acclimatise to it, and it's like, oh well, it's just life.
And it's the mindset, because one of the biggest things that we kept saying, whether it was about being sick, whether it was about, you know, being rained on constantly for 24 hours, whether it
You
was
were not
just me,
Meg
just
attracted
me.
the rain.
I had like my own comical like little cartoon rain cloud that followed me.
She really did.
Whatever it was just that thing of mentally saying everything is temporary.
Yeah.
Everything is temporary. It will come and it will go again.
Yeah.
And at the other end, you know, something better will come along.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was
It's
a
not
really
forever.
important part of our
Nothing's forever.
mindset the whole way.
Into the final couple of questions. Nicholas, you're right. Says, what attribute or skill do you think was your greatest strength during the crossing?
Sorry, what was the question?
So, what was your what attribute or skill probably helped you the most during the crossing?
I think probably our ability to just laugh at stuff. Like, I think this road could have been completely different if the three of us had let, like, when things got tough and things started to go wrong or whatever, and we let it affect us. But I think it's that mentality that you've just been speaking about, you know, like, everything is temporary, that we just have that mindset of we have to enjoy this and we have to choose our attitude, and actually it's up to us to kind of choose what attitude we have each day and how we do it. And I just don't think,
being able to, and it's, I know we've all sort of touched on it, being able to let something go. So, you know, whatever it is, you know, you'd be annoyed, you'd be frustrated, you'd be whatever, but then to finish, you know, maybe be quiet for the rest of your shift and do what you need to do. But then to be able to, when the next opportunity comes up, when the next interaction, you know, to just approach that consciously, positively, and launch yourself back into
to
it.
Continually just hit the reset button and say, you know, this has happened, it's in the past now, today's a new day, we're going forward, everything's fine, you know, whatever it is.
We have the entire power to control what our experience is like, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. And
we
to
made
use
sure
that
that it
rather
was
than sort of
positive
let it
way.
happen to us, to actively influence it.
So yeah, I think more than a skill, I think it was a lot of hard conscious work on all of our parts, which is why it worked so well. So I don't know, maybe more than a skill, it was just, I think we're so blessed to have this crew that we've got and to have this dynamic, and it's just been incredible to be able to roll alongside you guys and be part of that and have you guys in my life forever. Whether you like it or not.
If not in your 24-foot physical space.
Within my literal space.
And Hannah Osgood says, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge when going back to normal life? We've spoken about the technology and all the information you get. What about...
I've got to brush my hair every day.
Being socially appropriate.
I just pantsed myself in public before in front of these guys because I bought new bikini bottoms, and then I realised that probably wasn't an appropriate thing to do in public, like at the yacht club where there's many people around. So yeah, we've lost a lot of social appropriateness. So I'm concerned a little bit about going back to work because I don't know what I'm going to say or do.
I think like things on the boat that, like, we didn't wash our hair for days and days and days, like
all of the days.
All of us.
Like, you wouldn't brush your hair for like, well, it's probably pretty standard.
I've still got 2 dreadlocks.
Just stuff. Life on a boat is very simple and very easy compared to like
So
everyday life.
straightforward.
Like, but you don't really realise until you get off and you start thinking, oh God, like I've got to go and talk to people.
Yeah, life is, complex on land. You know, you have places to go and all these
Multitasking, it's very
talking
difficult
to
to do
you
that.
There are so many
phones are hard.
choices. So
Yeah,
many choices.
so-
I mean, you know, when it comes to food, we've had the choice of the same 7 things every day. But
Orzo bolognese. or-
Now you get a menu and you're like, oh God, like can someone pick something for me?
I've always been kind of indecisive though about things.
You are
Like, as in,
indecisive.
I'm pretty laid back though about it, which is why. But now I think actually a positive thing of it, instead of being overwhelmed by the choice that we have, I just choose not to see most of it and go, that one. And I don't care if it's the right or the wrong one.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
So then, penultimate question, any favourite music during the row?
Moana.
Moana.
Definitely
Oh
Moana.
God.
We were all just out there playing
Yeah.
like how far I'll go, just each of us feeling like we are Moana.
And for
Except you
anyone,
is the chicken.
for anyone who goes to do like a long expedition where you don't have internet, even if you download Spotify, it expires after 29 days. So you have to connect to the internet in once every 29 days, or you lose all your music. So just a heads up, because it's pretty disastrous, really.
Yeah. We had to move on to like the B list.
Yeah.
Of stuff that was left over on our phone. So I had about 2 weeks of just playing a singular Kings of Leon album and a single track from the soundtrack of Amelie.
Luckily,
Yeah.
I had
That happened
Glee,
to be on
Glee
my
Christmas album
Oh, yeah.
downloaded.
We had a lot of Christmas songs.
Celine Dion at Christmas.
And,
We listened
and,
to-
and
we
Ally
listened to
McBeal
that
at
a lot.
Christmas. So we had, it was like Christmas for about the last
Yeah.
2 weeks on the boat. We're like, jingle bells, jingle bells.
And then we had Gareth's iTunes on my phone, which has an electric mix from kind of Slipknot to Katy
I
Perry.
didn't like the
so
Slipknot.
So we had,
It's like
we had
you feel
an
like
intro.
the Slipknot comes on and then you feel like you're wrong. You're like, oh.
And then the Pina Colada song would come and everything would be fine.
It was contrasting.
So then, let's just go around from Elle all the way through to Meg. Is there anyone you'd like to thank in particular? Any special messages you kind of want to say to the crew supporters that have followed every single stroke all the way across the
There's a few people I'd really like to thank. So one's my partner Kat, who's over here now. So she helped run my business, The Generator, while I was here, which she just took in her stride with alongside her job, alongside everything else, and sent through these massive emails every week that sort of helped me get through it, and sent other messages of support from people. So I couldn't have done that without her support, and that she agreed to me rowing an ocean within 5 minutes of it coming up, and just knew inherently that I had to do it, and to just be so unwavering with that support. Morgana Godwin at home, who's done all the Jenny social media and has put so much stuff out on Instagram that I haven't seen yet. That you've just been an incredible support. My parents, everybody at home at Bundy, everybody in the startup land. I don't know, just everybody. The support has just been overwhelming. So thank you. Sorry if I've forgotten somebody too.
There's far too many people to thank. Friends, family. I don't think any of us really realised how guilty we were going to feel the day that we set off. And I think for us, we were living it, and we knew that we were in storms, but we were fine. But there was that guilt of what we were putting friends and family through. So I think from all of us, friends and family, we're sorry for putting you through everything that we did. And if we worried you at any point, then we knew that we were fine, and hopefully being able to message and say that we were fine was good. And so all friends and family and everyone at home, and just a big one to everyone who sponsored us. So we had so many amazing companies, either kind of product sponsorship or corporate sponsorship. There's too many for me to go through right now, but hopefully you've seen our social media, all the shout outs we've been doing for them, and everything we've got. So we will do some posts in the next few days kind of thanking all of our sponsors, but we ended up with so many, and we've made some amazing, incredible contacts from the people that sponsored us. We've just been overwhelmed by the products that people have sent us and the support we've had from everyone. So there's far too many people for me to thank on here, so I'll thank you all personally when I see you at home.
Yeah, a lot of the products and the companies and people that have supported us in that sense have been genuinely amazing, actually. So ocean rowers, people aspiring to do it, adventures, outdoor stuff, get in touch, and we will happily sort of talk you through all of the stuff that we used, and give you all the lowdown on it, because it's been fantastic. So we couldn't have done without that support. But personally, it's kind of mum, dad, brother, sister. Just absolutely amazing, and I'm sorry to have had to have called on you in that way. I was just like, it's another big adventure, I'm going off on an adventure, and I didn't really think about how it might
Impact on
bring everybody else into my very small focused world of rowing an ocean. And thank you for coming in on that and just being absolutely incredible and amazing. Friends, one of the biggest things that I've come.
Meg never cries either.
Yeah, you're not the crier.
No, but it's just showed me what amazing friends I've got, and I'm so grateful for it. Honestly, you're all blooming amazing. and people that perhaps aren't in my everyday life or that I haven't seen for years, or you know, just it's been absolutely incredible to see you guys kind of getting in touch and shouting out, and it's just amazing. And I really appreciate it, even if I haven't seen you for years, or you know, we don't chat or anything like that. Really, you know, it's immense, and I appreciate it so much, and it's incredible. So yeah, and just people that have engaged with us along the way that we didn't know beforehand, and you know, maybe we still haven't met now. You know, thank you so much, because
it made our day when we'd receive texts from like our support from land just saying like, oh, here's a few messages from people, and it honestly just made our day. And it, like, reading people's messages of support, and they come to us sometimes when we'd be having like such a bad day and do really hard, it'd be pouring with rain, or we'd be getting soaked, and suddenly we'd be reading all these messages of support from people, and it put into perspective like why we were doing it, and that there were so many people out there.
We wanted to grow the ocean because we wanted the experience of growing an ocean.
Yeah.
But on top of that, even more importantly, we kind of hoped that it would have some greater good or some bigger sort of relevance or impact on things and other people. And yeah, to have had so many people sort of engaged in it, and people kind of saying, hey, I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to go and do that, whether it is literally go and do a park run and run a 5K for the first time, or whether it's signing up for a big ocean row. That's been what it's all about, and yeah, it's so touching and amazing.
And it's had the most incredible sort of ability, I think, to connect this community and this group of people that I never anticipated was going to happen, I suppose. Is, you know, getting back to land and just seeing the degree to which everybody has engaged with this, and the amount that people are, you know, the amount that everyone's at home checking the tracker when we've only moved, you know, like 20 miles or something, and it's completely astonishing, the support and just the way that it's really brought people together, and hearing from people that we haven't heard from, and it's been just out of this world.
So we really couldn't have done it without it. And it's meant the whole world to it, and it's made this whole expedition, this whole journey, and the success of the trip for us. So yeah, thank you.
And we just need to say thank you to Chris Martin at Great Pacific Race
and all the crew,
everyone else that is involved in GPR.
Seriously,
yeah,
Chris.
Great Pacific Race is just it's been so good. If anyone wants to row an ocean, then get in contact with Chris Martin and row the Pacific, because it's amazing.
Yeah, Chris, Erdem, Ellen, Meg, Justin,
everyone.
We couldn't have done it. Without.
And a massive shout out to Gareth as well, who's done all of our social media and everything while we were gone. So the reason why, you know, you guys have seen so much is he's worked so immensely hard putting everything together, and that you've seen. Because obviously we were offline, we couldn't do it ourselves. So massive thumbs up. Like, give him some really good comments online, because he really deserves it for all his hard work. So
massive
thank you,
props to the guy behind the camera.
Who's here right now filming this, so you can't see.
So we're going to let the girls go and enjoy the Hawaiian sunshine and a couple of cocktails behind the bar. But a massive well done, ladies of Pacific Terrific! Woo!